So hello guys and welcome again to the channel. For today's topic of our discussion about the coming set Brothers War, we check on some of the mythics as to see what are the potentials for standard and also if there's still a hit currently in the market as for their individual price tag as we go along with the coming release of the set with the pre-release schedule next week and a release schedule for the 18th of November up to that weekend. So we start with this blue mythic artifact creature again that we usually encounter here, since most of them are just prototype card that was introduced in the set. We call this one our Arcane Proxy. It is a 7 to cast artifact creature wizard with, let me check the ability. It's a 4/3, but it's a prototype casting cost of only 2 blue and 1 generic for 2/1. It has an ability that when it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, it may exile target instant or sorcery card from a mana value less than or equal to that power of Arcane's Proxy from your graveyard, and that copy that card and may pay that cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Good thing here is that we sure to get early on. If assuming you have 4 copies of this in the deck, maybe for a build or an EZ spells, or maybe for a Grixis mid-range build with more spells aligned, you can do this, that will cast it early on. You'll have a 2/1 and you get to exile with value equal. Let's say it's 2 power, so you can exile a spell, instant or sorcery card with mana value 2 or less. Let's say this is a cut down or an infernal grasp, or maybe just any burn spell for such a lightning strike, for example. Then you get to get it for free. I think this one still has very potential because early on you just cast it for a prototype, and late game you still cast it for its hard cast costs. But assuming that you would only get at max is a mana value of a sorcery instant for 4, which means that there are some that you would not really abuse, such as Invoke Despair for black, and maybe the Invoke blue, since that is 5 to cast converted mana cost. But still, I would think this would be a good inclusion for most of the blue-based decks with spells and other sorcery cards that may accommodate the spot removals strategy on building a control list or tempo kind of deck. So maybe for the current price, I think there's still a good way to consider this or add this to your pre-order list and be able to use this early on as the card set Brothers War is released. Now for our next mythic, we have Awaken the Woods. This is a green mythic with the X red green mana. It is a sorcery that has this ability of creating X 1/1 green forest land creature tokens. So it's meant to say is that these land dryads are creatures that can basically produce green mana. But the bad thing is that they are affected by so many sickness, or unless you have other spells or effects that may have them give them haste. For instance, there's some enchantments that has the passive ability of having creatures haste. Then maybe you could get a whole value of this by just casting them and then use them right away for mana. But the good news here is that it's not really a drawback, the summoning sickness, because of its ability for green that can ramp up early on. Maybe you can just cast it for 3, the X is 3, or you can go in the late game with 5 or more. But the good thing is that you'll get this 5 1/1 forest dryads that can later on use it to ramp up your more of the spells, maybe cast a Titan of Ministry or pay it to have a huge fireball effect or any other pop effect that has mana value X that can use for the mana produced by these forest dryads. Ability wise, I mean, you see it fit in a I think that was a Celestial Tokens deck, since those are also tokens that are being produced. But the bad thing is that you might really commit on having a token strategy out of this. Mono green, this might be seeing play at least 2 to 3 copies. But if you are going with a Stumpy build, maybe this will just be a liability to just have some random bunch of 1/1s that won't really affect, unless you will have an overrun spell on the next turn. Then maybe that was a good advantage to use. I think this current value is still very fair at this price, and I would consider to add this in a pre-order list for green to also consider in my non-standard decks also. maybe for EDH can be a potential. Next up, we have a Blade Coil Serpent. This is basically from the colors that you see here. It's more of the Grixis type because of its ability that is basing on what mana cost was spent for it. So at the least casting cost, it's still 6 because if you would pay more for X, then they would have additional benefit. Let's count out the effects of this. If you play blue, for each blue spent to cast it, draw a card. Let's say if you paid 6 blue for this, you will draw 3 cards. If you paid the black for each spent mana on its mana casting cost, each opponent discard a card. If you paid 6 black, then your opponent would discard 3 cards. Now, if you play red to spend a bit, it gets +1/+0 against trample and haste. So if you paid red, for example, you paid 3 red, that means 6. You will get a 5/4 with 3 pumps, so that would be 8/4 trample haste. That's a very good advantage and mana sink in the late game. At the same time, that given that you have options, this can fit pretty well in any of the deck. Either it's monocolored or Grixis or just maybe 2 colors for this. You may have to add this in a blue-black deck, maybe a black-red deck, or any of the 3 combination cards. The more mana spent to cast it, the more benefits that it gets. The only sad thing is that other than its ETB effects, you won't really have any way to abuse it, like for example, reanimating it from your graveyard, or having to cast it for free. Let's say, for example, there are effects that will let you cast creature spells for free. Then you would not really benefit to get these effects for the TBs of this Serpent. But still, that makes it a very fair card given for a Mythic. I would still consider this if you're going to most of the mid-range decks in Standard, and maybe for some of the monocolored decks. I would assume if you're red, you can have 2 copies of this in the main. For mono black, since you're going with the mid-range, I would assume 2 to 3 copies. And also mono blue would also have this one for also 2 copies. Then if you're going with Grixis, I assume they would go all of the benefits since you're going with a late game setup, then have these 4 copies in the deck. So Blade Coil Serpent, I think its current price is still fair enough for a pre-order. And if ever you get to pull, we would consider having this version as to an extended art and foil version of this card. Next, we'll have Cityscape Reveler. This is an 8 to cast 8/8. A very big, huge casting cost for 8. If you cast a spell, this is trample also. When you cast it, whenever a cast it or attacks, destroy up to 1 target land and permanent, then its controller creates a tap Power Stone token. So the benefit here is that it has an ETB, attacks effect or cast effect, and it will also gives you an option to unearth it for 8. That the only problem here is that it's still an 8 mana cost for 8. So in the same way, if you're able to cheat out some of the cards, such as reanimating them, then maybe I would have this option for this card. Unfortunately, trample would be enough, but it's still very vulnerable to spot removals, and given a braid are still one of the popular card that can destroy artifacts. So this would be a liability. But still, I would consider this if you're going, for example, a reanimator kind of deck, then you would have at least a copy of this because of its ETB. I mean, it's a cast spell effect that can destroy any non-permanent or attack, or you can just unearth it for 8 if needed. So next up, Clay Champion. It's a 4 mana cost for X, and that's bonus again as like the previous Serpent card. This one has the benefit of entering the battlefield with 3% counters on it for each green spent to cast it. But there's also another effect. Enters the battlefield, choose up to 2 other target creatures you control, and then for each white spent to cast Champion, you put up +1% counter on each of them. So if you go with mono white, you would basically pay 4 for this. A bonus if you get to enough mana in the late game to pay 6 or 8 in that setup. But the bonus is that you can choose up to 2 other target creature you control that will get the pump effects with the +1% counters placed on them. So for example, you paid 4, you will get to add those 2 other creatures, 2 +1 counters on each of them. Now for the mono green, let's say the green setup of this, you paid 4 for 4 green mana for casting it. It will get the 6 +1 counters, so it becomes a 4 to cast 8/8 generic artifact creature construct with no other abilities. But still, it can be a good option, but I don't want to really rely on it, given that other than being a big threat, it has really no way to protect itself from spot removals. Given that, again, Abrade has become a popular card now that with the more of the artifacts are given in the format. That is for standard and also for Pioneer. Next, we have Draconic Destiny. I've discussed this with a fellow mono-red player from our local community on a previous video. This is also a 3 to cast enchantment creature, aura, that gets this enchantment creature +1, flying haste, and pay 1, this creature gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. It becomes a dragon in addition to its other types. The bonus is that when the enchantment creature dies, you may return Draconic Destiny to its owner's hand. So another thing, you can cast it again for another threat, for another creature that can become a threat, or just fly it out to do another strike on your opponent. Now for the deck build, I think I personally have these 2 to 3 copies. If you are more of the creature-based deck, then basically I think I'll have 4 copies of this automatically. But if you are lying to get variants of spot removals, burn spells, and creatures, then I will only have 2 copies of this, as there are times that you may not really have enough creatures to enchant them with this aura. But still, overall, this is still a good card to invest, especially that you're going with mono red, or maybe for Rakdos aggro, and maybe for Boros aggro. If the mana base permits now become with the Battlefield Forge, now it become legal and standard. Next card is Muriel. This is from another old preview that was initially thought to be 2 cast and 2/2. So this is the corrected mana cost and power and toughness. It is a legendary creature, human soldier token, that during your turn, opponents can cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, and enchantments. So basically, a better luck for their spells. You can basically have them, lets you go off with the combo, for example. And the bonus is that whenever it attacks, you get to create a 1/1 an X11 colorless soldier tokens. There are also artifact creatures in the bonus where X the number of soldiers you control. So given at Muriel attacks alone, you get the 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens. But whenever that you may place this in a soldier tribal deck, this can be a good 4-drop in a case. Maybe just 1 copy in the main deck or another one in the sideboard. This can still be a good attacker and game winner for your opponent's ability that they can't really interact against you during your turn. Now, for its effect, it reminds me of the hero of Bladehold, but the good news here is that it can rely more if the number of the soldiers you control could get out of hand, given that the same tokens to reproduce are still going with the soldier creature type. So this is consider this a good investment also for probably some of the mid-range, for Mardo mid-range decks, or if you're going with the blue-white soldiers, as I've previewed in the previous post, you can still have these 2 copies in the main deck and another one in sideboard. Price-wise, I think still very good way to add this to your pre-order. Now next up is one of the multiverse. This is a mythic from our blue that has this ability of 8 to mana cost. So may look at the top card of the library at any time. You may play land and cast spells from the top of the library, and once during each of your turns, you may cast a spell from your hand or the top of the library without paying its mana cost. It's like more of a future sight. At the same time, you would be able to play land. I think this is the same effect, but I think the bonus here is that the difference is this permission that you can play cast a spell from your hand or the top of your library without paying its mana cost. So again, maybe if you're going with this deck such as like the Similarity of an Omniscience build, then I would suggest to have this in a mid-range, maybe for the Arcane Bombardment deck, because of the abuse of having to cast cards or play lands from the top of your library to get your engine going for this deck. The sad thing is that maybe you can add also some extra turns. For example, Alchemist Gambit, that is from Crimson Bow, that takes you, gets you an extra turn. So having this card also would really get you out of hand to just combo out several of your spells and have enough, for example, burn spells to just finish off your opponent. Overall, I think this still has a fair price value again in the market. If you are going for EDH again, this is an auto inclusion if you're blue based in your EDH commander deck build with one copy of this to your collection. Now, next is the artifact creature again. Platoon Dispenser is a 5 to cast 4/6. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more other creatures, you draw a card. You can also have this ability that pay for 3 generic in white, create a colorless soldier artifact creature token. So along with this body, it also has an unearth of 2 white. Next step, if you control 2 or more creature, draw a card, then still good bonus. You can also have bodies of its own. A good mana sink in the late game, also has an earth. But I would see it fit more in a, maybe in a mono white control, or let's say the Mardu late game build, wherein you will have enough mana to just go out of hand with this ability of creating this 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature tokens, and also the bonus of having the draw card. But in the average, it would still be an good one of card to add in those kind of decks. Value wise, I'm not sure if still good value here, but we'll check the price at the end of this video as we compare some of the mythic cards. Now, for the last 2 cards in this preview, we have Rootwile Amalgam. It's a 5 to cast 5/5 artifact creature golem. It has a prototype effect again of having just green mana in 1 for a 2/3. It has its ability that you may pay 3 in green, sacrifice Amalgam, you will create an XX colorless artifact golem creature token where X is 3 times this Rootwile's power. So if you, this version of a prototype card, you will basically 2 times 3 is 6, so pay 5, it becomes a 6/6 colorless golem artifact creature token. It gains haste until end of turn and activate only a sorcery. But yes, that's probably a small drawback here. But the good thing is that you can still get an effect of this, have this one as a 5/5, and then just price them by attacking with, by sacrificing this, and then have a 15/15 colorless golem artifact creature token. But still, that drawback of a sorcery speed would really bother me, because it's not really a surprise ability per se. But still, that makes it an average card. Maybe for this one's for mono green, not sure if really that effective of a card for a Stompy deck. Maybe for some of the cards that has some recursion effect, since you're going to sacrifice this one, you'll just have another card to return this to your hand or reanimate it from your graveyard. So that's overall. This becomes a 5/5 with 5 and a free token, but you can reanimate later on. So 1 or 2 copies maybe in the deck. Last but not the least, here's our Sarith Great Worm. I'm sad that it's still a worm token for a mythic, with this ability that whenever a land enters the battlefield, you will create a tap Tower Stone token. It's a 6 to cast for 7/6 and trample. It's not really unusual for today's kind of creatures given the power level of the cards. But maybe because of this ability that having to create a tap Power Stone token gets you to really ramp out early and maybe have a artifact spell that may be very relevant or in game ender for this say. Maybe for Standard, I would not really see. For a mid-range deck, maybe for John, you can have this as as a pet card. But for Commander, this would surely have some sense to play because of its ability of having free Power Stone tokens whenever you play a land or whenever a land enters the battlefield. So last but not the least, we'll check on some of the prices of the Mythics card currently. Let me just get you back on this video. So hello again. This is now the current price list in MTG Goldfish as ranked by Mythic. You can see here that Silent Great Worm is still the very much card to consider here. It is then followed by Ursal Lord Protector. I have yet to discuss this one on a separate video soon. Next, we also have Geeks Yogma Traitor, Parisian Flesh Gorger as most of the top. These are the top two favorites as I've added in my black-green deck, as if you can see in the previous discussion. Then we also have Muriel. So it's currently at $20, so this is still a good investment here. Next is Teferi, Temporal Pilgrim. And then Awaken the Woods, still a follow-up, $15. Arcane Proxy at 13. This is one of the first card I've said that can be really reliable to become 4 of copies in the deck. Then Poltergeist with $12. Mishra came by Geeks for 11, and Sahili Filigree Master for $10. The rest we want to really see with, as I have described in this deck, we didn't really saw them reeling the hype. Honorable Burst has $8. Blade Gold Serpent $8 also. Loot Wild is 6. Search Engine Cityscape is 5, and then Clay Champion $4. So Direct Destiny, as I've hoped, become a good card for this. As all know, as only saw 3.37 in the current market. So that's about it for this Mythic decks Mythic cards for the Burst War. If you like this video, just click on subscribe and turn on notifications for more Brothers War update and other related Magic the Gathering content. Thank you for checking this video, and until the next time, see ya.